Hey guys, welcome back to the Stimulus. I'm Steph, and here we are today at the California Academy of Sciences for a very special behind-the-scenes tour with the lovely Heather Archuleta, who's joining me again. Can't never point the right way the first time, but yeah. So we're standing out front, and here we go. It's gonna be awesome. Science!
We're one of the oldest scientific institutions in this part of the world. West of the Mississippi, I guess. And we were set up in response to the, basically like the gold rush and all the mining and other activities that were happening at the time to study the environmental impacts of all this kind of big rush of human activity here that was, you know, a huge uptick in what was going on. So we were first and foremost a scientific institution. We did research on like the environment and natural history, what we call that at the time, kind of the geology, the climate, the water, the plants and animals, all this kind of stuff. But it was about 25 years later we opened a public museum downtown, actually just off Market Street. And we ran that open to the public until 1906. And then, of course, the big earthquake hit San Francisco, and so our building was destroyed by earthquake and then a fire that swept through that part of the city. Interestingly, almost all of our collections were destroyed in the fire and the earthquake, except some small parts of it, including a part that was saved by a woman named Alice Eastwood, who's a real hero around here. She was the head of the, she was the curator of the botany department at the time, and was in charge of the botany collections. She actually ran into the building when it was on fire after the earthquake, climbed up 6 stories of rubble by scaling what were the wrought iron railings on the side because the steps were gone. She climbed up all of that, up 6 flights of no longer stairs. Wow. And while wearing, you know, kind of Victorian garb while doing it, and got up to her lab. And yeah, oh yeah.
No longer stairs too. It's like this weird science.
Well, the dress, she actually tore off bits of it from the hem or whatever, and tied as much as she could little bundles of her plant specimens and carried them out of the building. And we still have them today, which is really kind of amazing. They're among our most kind of precious items. But the Academy actually might have been, some historians claim we were the first institution in the world to hire women scientists and put them on our payroll in the 1870s and 1880s. And actually when our charter, you know, explicitly says we, you know, enthusiastically encourage men and women to be involved in science, which was not true anywhere else in the country at the time. So that was pretty cool. And so we're doing, you know, that's something we care a lot about today, too, again, of course. But anyway, so she was really amazing. But we ran this building until 1906, downtown in 1906. That building was destroyed. Then we moved out to Golden Gate Park in 1916. A full 10 years later, we reopened, rebuilt, and started over again. And ran here until 1989. And then another earthquake comes along, a Loma Prieta earthquake. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Finally, we just tore down the whole darn thing. We moved downtown in a bunch of warehouses on Howard Street after the first dot-com bubble burst. And there's cheap real estate for a moment in San Francisco for businesses anyway. And then we opened this building in 2008. This is, when it was built, was the greenest building on Earth of any kind. It's a double LEED Platinum certified building. It's still by far the greenest museum ever built. In terms of its environmental performance. It's also the only museum on the planet, and still is, that includes an aquarium, which is everything below us is all aquariums, a natural history museum, and one of the largest in the world, and a planetarium. And in terms of other kind of fun facts and figures, we're the 3rd largest science museum overall in the country in terms of attendance. There's the Smithsonian, of course, the American Museum in New York, and then us. And we're the largest museum of any kind in this part of the world. So all art museums or whatever. So we're pretty proud of that. It's the living roof. I guess you've seen it before, maybe, but if you haven't, this is kind of cool. It's a 2.5 acre, about 1 hectare living roof. So about 100 meters by about 100 meters. So it's about, you know, it's about twice the size of a football field, roughly. And if you think about it, that's pretty cool. These are all California native plants. But one thing that a lot of people don't notice, you can take younger. Use it for other things than just plants because it's a lot of space. So So we found that talking about evolution or climate change are not controversial in Northern California for the most part. But you got to bring people in emotionally. It turns out, we found that the best way to open somebody's mind is first open their heart and show people something beautiful and immersive and interesting. That's why I think museums in an aquarium are kind of fun, because you get to be immersed in something, then talk about it. It's not just a textbook or something. So here we went after the idea of evolution and diversity of life through the lens of color, using beauty and color to say, wow, look at that crazy animal or that amazing plant. Why does it look like that? And the answer is always, well, turns out that trait was evolved over millions of years to help it, avoid predators, or to find its food, or to attract the right mate, or whatever, And so we had thousands of kind of color stories in here, but they're all stories about evolution. But we found this is a little stickier than just kind of survival of the fittest, DNA, blah blah blah. That's all behind the scenes. That's in there. But the first kind of way out is really about beauty and color, which everyone can relate to, whether they think they're a scientist or not. And I think it's time to put some beauty back in science, because that's why most people got into it in the first place. Is the awe and wonder of the universe and nature. Yeah, and why do we make it so dry? We should make it embrace that beauty and awe. Even some art, right behind you, is a very, very rare set of these are limited edition prints that Andy Warhol did that he signed. All those are his signature. And these were, we've been about endangered species, and they're so beautiful and colorful. We decided to add them to this collection. We've had these for years. Google actually helped fund this exhibit, so it's nice to see our local tech companies get involved in helping the community. They've also been great partners, and they helped bring 3,000 kids from Oakland here on field trips last spring. And they paid for the buses, they paid for food, they paid for interpreters if kids needed it.
Good.
They even had staff from Google being extra docents that day. So that was really, really fun. And they got so excited they want to do it again and do it kind of routinely. So we're hoping that the successful kind of tech companies in the Bay Area will help us make sure that every kid gets a really great exposure to science whenever they want. Yeah, this is a day octopus,
right there.
and octopus have things called chromatophores in their skin that change color, pattern, and texture depending on what they're hovering around. So she's right there, but I've seen these day octopus change color from purple to brown to stark white to jet black all instantly. So she's doing her best to blend into those rocks right now, which is pretty good actually. It took me a minute to even spot her. She's right in front of us.
She's right at the top.
But octopus are super unbelievably smart animals. They only live about a year in the wild, so they live longer in the museum than they do in the wild. Oh, wow. But we have to kind of go out and get more of them once in a while. And but even for like a 1-year-old, they can do puzzles. They can open up jars. But octopus are way smarter than any 1-year-old human. So if octopus if a mad scientist wanted to make octopus live to be 20 or 30, we are screwed. They'd be like,
This place is so cool.
kind of have this faint smell of alcohol in here. You might have noticed all the electrical controls and things are on the outside of the room to prevent any kind of spark or short or something here. This is extremely flammable, actually explosive. You know, these kind of special, very elaborate fire suppression systems. But this is a tiny, tiny, tiny little part of the ichthyology collection, which is a fancy word for fish. And so you can see just some that we're just sitting in a cart somebody's playing around with here. And I guess these are some things people like to show here. So, but you can look behind you and see all these, you know, I'm sadly not an ichthyologist. I'm a physicist, so I know nothing about these things other than they're interesting fish.
Wow.
But these are from all over the world, obviously, and from about a century. And we use these, you know, primarily for, back in the day, kind of studying the evolution of fish, mainly through their kind of morphology, you know, their anatomy, basically. But now we're increasingly using the genetic material from these. We have like one of the best ancient DNA labs in the world here that can sequence little bits and pieces of DNA that are still left in these organisms. When you pickle them like this, it starts to break down their DNA. But if you get enough samples, you can kind of piece together parts of it and do what's called phylogenetics, which is kind of a new approach to looking at the evolution of different forms of life on Earth. From a blue whale. This is like the top of the humerus of a whale, a blue whale. Some ribs, some other things here too. And then basically all these guys are you know, these are skeletal remains, and these are by the, you know, the Latin name. This is our little mascot down here. This is a giraffe skull, believe it or not. I have a cast of these. You can make casts of these by, like, you know, putting them in like rubber, pouring that, you know, you can make them out of resin and stuff like that. I actually have one of these in my bookcase at home, which is pretty weird. Here's this is an elephant skull here, if you're interested in that.
Oh, wow.
This is where the tusk used to be. And you can tell these are herbivores by looking at their teeth, these back molars and stuff like that.
Yeah, wow. We're up in the rainforest part, and it is amazing! Alright guys, we are leaving the California Academy of Sciences, and it was such a great day. But I have so much material that this is going to be split into a 2-week show. So congratulations, you made it to the end of part 1. Tune in next week to see the exciting and epic and sciencey conclusion. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay well, stay awesome, and I will see you next time.